07 Commanders. My name's Commander Will Fearion, leader of the Vortex Squadron. We're back at you tonight again with some Going In Hot podcast. And I got a special guest this week, and we're going to get right into that.
Part of the children's class, and I'm actually a junior, at least relatively speaking, player in the Elite Dangerous community. I've only been around for the last year and a half, about 3,000 hours in the game, and happy to be here.
All right. And there's my guest, and he's here. Okay. So we're going to talk about basically one thing tonight that we know of. We might drift a little, but we'll try not to. We're going to talk about the background simulator. Everybody knows what that is, right? Do you know what that is? You know what that is.
I would. It's the duct tape and nails that basically hold the entirety of the game together.
So I guess in a nutshell, it's kind of like it's the system that anything you do in the system has an effect. So the galaxy doesn't stay static. The only way we can manipulate that is by taking actions in systems on planets or, wherever. That all has an effect on the population within. I have on my screen right now, I have, as both Kai and I are in minor factions. A minor faction is something that, how can I look at the whole, let me go to this screen here and let me see if I can kind of show you. So when you're looking at your right panel here, you can see all these little guys here, these system factions. Those are what's called a minor faction, right? And they're kind of in order by how much influence they have on the system. And each system has its own influence, and then that influence can affect other systems, trade routes, all kinds of stuff. Does that sound about right? What else can they do?
Yes, it influences both the macroeconomy, microeconomy. Every action your commander takes, kind of just general overview. Anything that's recorded in your log, any mission, any transport mission, assassination mission, settlement raid, bounty hunting, anything at all is affecting the background simulation, the BGS. It is one of the most complicated non-EVE online related systems, macro systems that probably exist in any single MMO or any single game. And due to its complexity by nature, it is also has become quite esoteric, especially amongst various discussions and circles within the community, especially regarding any potential or future rework of said system.
Yeah, and so basically, all these systems that you see out on the galaxy map, they're all governed by different factions, minor factions. Now, this system works independently of power play. However, power play can influence it, not usually on purpose, but because of the way power play works, it has a big effect on the BGS, and that's one of the problems we're going to discuss tonight. Why that's a problem. But if you look at in the system, so this is the only way I know how to explain it. So as a system as a whole, the power players, okay, all 12 power play, if what they do is they exploit the entire system. So they don't have control over individual parts of the system, just the whole thing. So like it's a weird reference obviously, but I kind of look at them as like the pimps, right? And we work for the pimps. Okay. So if if the system's exploited, then they basically take a cut somehow. I don't know if that actually happens, if it transpires, but basically it's like they take a cut of all the businesses in the system, but they don't control them specifically. The minor factions control them. Right. So whichever each minor faction can not only control the whole system, but they can control individual ports and both land and space ports in a system, and then they can have the rules apply individually per planet per port, right? Did I say that right? I'm close. Um,
Yeah, that's more or less on the surface level. That's kind of the root
yeah,
of it.
yeah, I don't want to get
Yeah,
too deep because this thing,
yeah.
well, our brains will explode if you go too deep into BGS. Your brain explodes automatically. It's just
Especially
it's
when you're trying to keep this like succinct and kind of on the
yeah,
surface level.
yeah. Well, yeah, we don't want a 95-page document. Okay. We just want to tell you guys kind of the basic overview because a lot of people ask me about it. So it's like little mini governments, right? So the area of space, the larger, back at the galaxy level, the larger area of space can be controlled by one of the superpowers, which is the Empire, the Federation, the Alliance, Independence, and is there a fifth one? Uh,
I believe there's a fifth one.
I'm
I
trying to think of what it is. Independent,
no, no,
Alliance.
that
No,
actually
that's
might
it. Four. Okay. So
might be it.
yeah.
Yeah, four.
So all systems in the galaxy fall. Well, not all of them. A lot of them. There's kind of a, I guess, as far as what the superpowers control. That's kind of bubble. That's kind of a. They have little bubbles, pockets that they control, and they fight with each other over territory and stuff like that. But inside the system itself, you can, if your minor faction happens to be a certain is governed by a certain government. Say, for example, this system here, this system 7126 here, is governed by a minor faction called the 13th Legion. Those guys are governed by the Empire. So the Empire is basically the governance here, but it can also be exploited, right, by other power play powers, or they used to be called major powers. I don't know what people call them these days, but the power play people can also have influence over them as far as exploiting. So it could be, even though this place is run by Empire, if it's exploited by Grom, then Grom is, still taking a cut of the money, even though Empire. See what I'm saying? I'm already going down the rabbit hole. Okay, it gets a little crazy. Does that make sense to you? Okay.
Yes, it absolutely makes sense. It's a nesting egg system, right? So the
Okay.
power play is influencing BGS seemingly much more heavily than obviously vice versa. And I think that's kind of the intention. The intention is, if you look at it from a, I guess, astral political, because I wouldn't use the term geopolitical, stellar political,
Yeah.
in a stellar economic level, the idea is the major powers, you have your superpowers, you have your major powers, then you have the minor factions, all vying for control over galactic and then sector and then local systems in that order, in relation to the categories themselves. It's like a nesting egg structure. So it's understandable how it works, and yeah, I think they also call it major powers still in relation to
Yeah. I mean,
the
it
power
should
play
be.
faction. It should
Yeah.
be called that. Yeah, they should be called that, or major powers,
Well,
but
yeah, but then they put power play on it, so I think people get confused between
they get confused.
the
Yeah.
power play powers and the major powers. They're both the same. They used to
Mhm.
just handle it differently than they do now. So, but basically, back in the day when this all first began, we were able to go out into the galaxy, look around, and if you met a certain criteria, which I don't remember, then you were allowed to send an email or whatever to Frontier and ask them if you could have a minor
Mhm.
faction in the game. So you'd have to give them the name of said minor faction. You'd have to tell them where, and then you'd have to give them. We actually had to fill out the system information, which is, basically. So if you see this on my screen, it says the Vortex Continuum are guns for hire, pirates, mercenaries, bounty hunters, and vigilantes. They support any cause, power, or faction that others profit. Oh wow. Offers profit and blood. Sorry, can't even read my own. I would probably write that differently today. Okay, I wrote that a long time ago. But yeah, so you'd have to send them all this stuff, and then as long as nobody else had that as an origin system, you were able to do that. And that's one of the systems we'd like to see come back is the origin system, because then if you and the ability to create minor factions. and we would like that to be in the hands of the player, right? So the once you have all this stuff, then the next thing you want to do is, you can build that up or do whatever. Both of us, both Kai and I, both are part of an anarchy system. So there's a lot of things that kind of fell on us at the time that they released Odyssey, because now there were no ground ports originally. It was all space ports, right? So you didn't have to worry about those as much, but the ground ones are different, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. So, am I missing any points so far that you can see on this beginning of looking at this?
No, no, I don't think you are. I've been told similar by other old heads as well, and it does track up with the fact that as any new player who has tried to either create their own squadron, that would be me at before I joined Core. Um, I had you could no longer create or you could no longer email Frontier for an origin system
Nope.
because when I had first started playing the game with my group of friends, we couldn't figure out how to do that. We contacted
Yeah, it was pretty.
Frontier,
Yeah, you had to be pretty
yeah,
deep in the paint to know how to do this. So,
and we were informed that it was a system that was no longer present within the game, and
yeah.
much to like our regret as new players, this was a really cool thing to see that clans, squadrons, as you would know them in the league, but clans were able to carve out their own section of the galaxy and have a system that was like named at like related to their squadron. It would have their history in the when you clicked on it. For example, I can go to my clan's home system, which is HR6421, and we have an entire blurb in the origin text on the primary star. This is the
Yeah.
home system of the children of
Yeah.
Raxla.
That's
Blah blah
what
blah
I
blah
was.
blah.
Yeah.
So, and that's been there for probably near a decade now at this point.
What'd you say it was
Um,
again? HR what?
HR6421.
Six
Yeah, and
four
it's
two one. I can actually look that up. Probably. I don't know if I've ever been there, but
yeah, it's
okay. So
quite
there it is.
quite a little interesting
Yeah, I
system.
can't
And
see the blurb on yours because I don't think I've been there before. So
okay, that would explain
yeah.
it. Well, the I'll go ahead and take a screenshot here
Oh
for
wait,
you
I
of
have
the
been in there.
blurb.
What am I thinking? Why
Oh,
didn't
good,
it
that
show
worked
it
out
to me?
as well.
Oh, there it is. Here it is. It's over. I got it. It's the home system of the children of Raxla,
Hmm.
self-proclaimed descendants of the inhabitants of Raxla,
Hmm.
mythical planet spoken of only in whispers and yeah. So you guys are equally
A
yeah,
lot of the RP stuff.
far into the RP is like I
Easy.
am, but I'm not
I,
quite
I'm
as
not.
deep.
I'm not quite as deep with the RP stuff. I'll be completely honest with
Yeah,
you. It's just something that I could do. I mean, it's cute though. I like it. But
yeah.
even if we wanted to edit like some of the blurb or like the information in there, we couldn't. Right? That system no longer exists. We're not able to.
Well, yeah, and
Um,
the thing is too is that the game doesn't really know that system belongs to your squadron. So that's something they might have to incorporate. Is like right now you can pick any minor faction you want is
mhm.
in your squadron, right? So you can change it as much as you want, which I think is kind of a neat idea. However, I don't think you're going to be able to do that if you create one. It's going to have to be attached to a squadron or so whoever's the squadron leader should be able to
And
deal with that.
additionally, correct me if I'm wrong, but for anyone who's created new squadrons out there, that's like, man, I don't get to have the cool little info blurb on my home system. It's not just that. I
Yeah.
also believe that the origin system model, your player faction that came along with it, which we have as the Children of Raxla, that that also can't be removed from the origin system as well. Is
No,
that
it
also
can never
correct?
be removed. So even though like in our origin system, we don't control it anymore, another group does. So you may look at it and you go, well, this says it's empire. We're anarchy. You know what I mean? So it does get a little confusing as to, okay, why would that blurb be in there on an empire system? Well, it's really not. It's really our system, but we're not control of the primary port. Whoever's in control of the primary port is basically who runs the system. And then a individual port and individual ground space can have their own government in that area, which is what causes some of the problems that we have as Anarchy. And how people how the hoops we kind of have to jump through to try and keep ourselves from not being in control of our own system, because
Yes, and
originally you wanted control of everything.
that's a great. I'm glad you brought that up, Fearion, because I'm actually going to open up the unbelievably nebulous sub factions menu. So check out the minor factions menu on the left side panel for HR 6421. It actually perfectly illustrates the point you just
On the
brought up.
left side.
Yes, we have a full house, 8 total minor factions, ignoring the perma faction in here that is our player faction, the Children of Raxla. There are 7 other factions present in this system.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
order
No, I
for
can't.
us to have kept our predominance in this system, as we have always kept for years and years and years,
Yeah.
we have basically been forced. This is a common thing within the BGS when there's so many different player factions actively present, is that we've had to keep the various minor factions fighting each other in never-ending wars within the system over surface planetary ports, while we kept a stranglehold on the orbital and
Yeah.
primary
Yeah,
ports.
you do. Yeah, that's the problem. We can't. If we control a ground port, people just turn it into a farm, and then they also, at the same time that they're farming us, they're taking away all our influence, and we have no any kind of security. Right? There's no downside. Can you tell me that name again?
HR 6421.
6421. I'm gonna write it down this time so that I don't forget. So you wanted me to look at that H6421.
Yes, and I'm sure that many commanders listening in on this podcast have certainly had a Trailblazer system under their control that they're trying to wrestle the control away from the dominating faction, but you're
Right.
constantly fighting like surface and space conflict zones between 3 and 4 other factions
Yeah, and that's one of our biggest
together.
problems is because there's no consequences. We can basically be
Mhm.
in perpetual war, basically never come out
Yes.
of war. And I'll tell you what, guys, that sounds like great fun till you do it for about 2 months, and then you're like, oh my god, we got to do
Yeah.
something else. We got to go. I'll do anything. I'll go mining. I promise. I'll do something. Anything just to get away from that. So yeah, that's one of the major issues. Yeah, but most systems do have that though, where there's several, and even in the one I'm in now, it's hard to look at it without being in the system. But so like you can see here, the 13th Legion's here, these guys are here. That's a now some of these minor factions get put in by the game automatically, and they usually a minimum of usually 3 is what I've seen. It'll have like 3 or 4, where they'll put in when you're colonizing now, it'll take like your faction if you're connected to one, and then it'll take the whoever's faction was the one where you bought the beacon, and then usually another one that came from the same system you bought the beacon in, and then the fourth one could be a made up one and that's usually the Anarchy faction. And I think that's part of the problem, is that Anarchy, as far as AI is concerned, is considered like the bad guys, right? They do all the bad stuff. Now, we're Anarchy, but we're not necessarily like, there's certain things that Anarchy is allowed to do that I don't particularly agree with. I don't like killing innocents, stuff like that. I'm not going to go kill a bus full of children, stuff like that. But
Yeah, I would love to, as a new player, trying to understand that part right there.
yeah.
Everything else is very self-explanatory with when you're choosing your government order type. I'm not even really sure what you want to call it. I'm just going to say we're going to call it,
Well, it's just the government. I'm
um,
pretty sure you're right, because it'll
yeah,
say
just your
government.
government,
Yeah. See,
yeah,
like,
your government order, government structure. It's a very weird term that they use. I think it's just, it actually is just government, which is still a
yeah.
weird term to
Yeah, it's
describe it all.
government faction.
Um,
Yeah, so and then it kind of gives you, and I think there's been more added since we got ours, because I don't think
mhm.
there's certain governments that are in there now that I've never seen before, like cooperative. corporate. I don't remember seeing any of this stuff back in the day. So we just had to tell them what we wanted to be. And, so we chose Anarchy. And at the time, back in the day, Anarchy was cool to have. Yay, we don't follow anybody's rules. But then, yeah, you also don't get a police force. There's no consequences. People can reset instances over and over and over and over. And it basically wrecks your influence. And then, you end up in a position like we are in this system where we are at the very bottom. We're at 1.8% influence. But the nice thing is, though, is because it's an origin system, we can't be thrown out of this one. That's something I forgot to mention earlier. But
yeah, the nice thing about it is that we obviously cannot be thrown out of our origin system in the older squadrons that had said system implemented. We can never be kicked out. We can be at the absolute bottom,
yeah, that's
and
where
we'll
we are.
always have a foothold. But we'll always have that foothold in the origin system.
Yeah.
Any new squadron that's being created now in 2026 AD will unfortunately have to not have this system, this nice little backup welfare security net in place, and they can lose whatever system that they want to declare as their home system, quote unquote, because you really can't do that any longer without the player faction slash origin system that was originally implemented in the game, um, that was removed by Frontier. You can no longer have that foothold. So you can be kicked out of like what you might consider your clan's home base of operations. And I think Frontier's idea was they kind of wanted squadrons to utilize the squadron carrier as that HQ. Um, it's like the mobile HQ.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I mean,
They got
with
jokes.
Trailblazers, yeah, with Trailblazers and colonization, that's a weird mixed message you're sending. I mean, we're building systems, we're
Yeah.
expanding our clan's player factions into those systems. We
Y-
want to have a foothold in the presence in those systems, and that goes if you're making a squadron, you're going to probably want a physical anchor that is the home system
I'd say
of that
that,
squadron.
yeah, I agree with you to a point, but I think there are probably squadrons out there that don't want to colonize or don't understand it, don't get it, whatever.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
so we have all of it, right? We have everybody's got a personal fleet carrier. We got a squadron carrier, and we have several systems that we have built. So yeah, I mean, it's really about how ambitious your squadron is, I guess.
Yeah, my point with the Trailblazer comment was to illustrate that they introduced a system in the game where we can carry our player factions,
Yeah,
throughout the stars.
yeah,
But it kind of goes back to we should have a system that is just where our squadron or clan is moored at, where the player faction, which so the in-game representation as an NPC faction, the in-game representation of our squadron, it can never be removed from. So even if the 2,000 systems that your squadron is currently present in were to be you would be kicked out of 1,999 of them. There's that one origin system that you head out from that will be yours, and you can never be unseated from there. You might get kicked out of your primary port. You might even be the lowest of the minor factions present within that system, but you can never be removed. And I think that's a nice little, safety cushion for your player faction within what is increasingly becoming a more chaotic BGS. Um,
oh yeah, it's really chaotic now because it we weren't allowed to like, plant our little uh, seed here, or continuum, or minor faction. Basically, we can seed the entire galaxy with that thing now. I mean, but before you had to expand to get to another faction, which is another system that's not working very well, especially with the number of systems that we can control now, right? So it used to be back in the day, you would build your core system or your origin system, and then when it got up to a certain level of influence, when you're, when you got up to like 6 or 75%, I think it was, your system would automatically go into a different state. See, like right now, if you look at the states, they're all none. There's nothing going on here. It's all quiet. but it would go into an expansion state, and then you would have to continue to raise the influence until it expanded, but it would be random. That's another problem, is the random expansion. Also, there's some rules, like you're not supposed to be in war anywhere. You're not supposed. There should be no other states, that are going to cancel the expansion state. And once you get to that point, then it goes ahead and it randomly picks somewhere to expand to that's near where you're at. And when we were much smaller, it was a much easier thing to manage. But when you're in 300-400 systems, you guys are probably in 1,000 by now. We're only in like 350 something. But
Yeah, I'm actually curious how much we're present.
yeah, you can see it on the NAR.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually pull it up right now out of curiosity.
Yeah, so that's another thing too. Is if so, let's just say, for example, if they allow us to, I know I kind of got sidetracked on this point before, but that's not what I wanted. In the excuse me, in the squadron bank, there's a way, or not in the bank. Why did I do that? I confuse myself.
I found the number, by the way.
Yeah,
We're present in
1,500.
1,500 star systems.
Yeah, and you literally cannot manage that many.
No.
Yeah.
No, we
so
cannot.
yeah, we with when we first started, when we got up to like 6, we were like, "Whoo, this is a lot of work," And now we're at like looking at 350, 360, and we're like going, "Yeah, we don't even know where any of those systems are. Half of them, or probably 2/3 of them. We have no clue where they're at, or what they do, or why they're there, or any of that stuff." So but in the squadrons system now, you can, if I go to the right tab this time, squadron details, I think you can do that under there. Yeah, so right here. Yeah, so your superpower, it still calls that superpower. Independent, you can be independent, Federation, Alliance, or Empire. So I did get all those right. Hey, what do you know? And then supporting faction, that's your minor faction. Okay, so if you don't have one, you can pick any supporting minor faction you want. And there's some rules to this too. Like whoever's trying to set it up has to have a certain level of influence with that, or reputation. Sorry, reputation's the other thing you go, right? So it'd have to have a certain level of reputation to be able to do these. But we could be any of these if we want, and you can change them on the fly, which is neat in a way. But the problem is, I think for them to be able to make this so that we can, supporting faction, create new, they're going to have to attach it to the squadron, in which case you may not be able to change it. I'm not sure if they would allow us to, you know what I mean? So let's say you wanted to create like a handful of them. So you might want certain kind of laws in one system different from another. You could set up an anarchy version. You could set up a corporate version. You could set up a, empire one, a federation one, whatever. And then you could kind of just change it before you colonize something, and then put that faction in there. But I'm not sure they want us to go to that level. You might have to say, okay, if you create a supporting faction, you have to be that. That's it. That's what you get. If you want to make a new one, maybe they'll let you make a new one, but I don't know if they'll let switch back forth. I don't know. That's going to be some logistic stuff that I'll let the boys at Frontier figure out.
Yeah, for me, it's just I think any newly created squadrons or squadrons that have been created after the origin system was rescinded, that they should reintegrate the origin system into player and the player faction / holy system.
Okay, and this brings up
game for those squadrons.
Well, that brings up another point. Okay, if they allow you to create an origin system, is that going to be affected by who architected the system, right?
And by the way, I don't want to suggest that it's something that should be brought back for free. I do think there should be like an ARX cost.
Well, of course. Yeah, the marketing. I don't want the marketing department calling me, yelling at me. Okay, yeah, of course we're paying money for it.
I think it establishes an actual control that they didn't really have before in place over the who was just inundating FDev with emails or requests in their system to have an origin system. But this could be like a nice little like monetized like safeguard. It's something like relatively inexpensive, like 500, 750 or
Okay, don't
so.
give them any ideas, man. Now you're going too far. 50 cent. 50 cent is good. We like that. Now, well, the difference is depending on how many of these you can create. If it's a single one-time thing, because a lot of people don't even
Yeah.
understand that these exist in the game. They go through the game,
No,
they
they
get what
don't.
they just run through there, they get whatever they want, they take our rares, they do whatever. They just come and, empty out, like in our system, this one that I was looking at, LTT 7126. They come in, they farm the holy bejesus out of the ground ports because we have ground
Mhm.
ports, and then they leave. They have no idea what what they're doing to the system. They don't even care.
Yeah, and to kind of give players who might not understand that, let's say any tradeaholics that might be listening. My first Elite 5 in the game was trade. Like I love trading and mining in the game. So when I found out about, I would say about like 2 months casually playing the game, I think I had already hit like Elite 2 or 3 on trade, me and my friends. And we had, or I should say my friends and I, and we had discovered that, all of the like factions, that all the minor faction controlled surface ports and space stations that we have been visiting for our various hauling endeavors, we were causing like booms to pop up in various systems, and we had actually pushed those various factions into expansion slash boom states due to the sheer amount of volume
Yeah.
of goods we were purchasing and then selling for high in other systems. So that was our first real experience, about 2 months casually playing the game, where we had discovered just the severe impact you and like three other of your friends can have uh just on the
I've seen them
game's
do it with two. I've
BGS.
seen a team come in and just completely obliterate all the minor factions except for one. So there is like this caveat. Now,
And there's no control or safeguards over that system. It's
no,
not like
it,
you're
it's
playing, it's not like an Eve online or anything where
well,
you
it
can.
does have them, but it's not
Yeah.
intent. It was never intended to defend against like mass flooding. Okay, so there's no whatever that
Hmm.
guardrail is, because typically if you get into trouble where they knock, say in another system, if they knock us down to 1% influence, we might go into a state that's called retreat, right?
Yeah.
So, but they give you like a few days when it goes into retreat. It gives you like maybe it's a week, I don't know, but maybe it's tick to tick. Well, we haven't even started talking about ticks yet. So the they give you like a week to fix it. Okay, so if you don't want to leave that system, you have to go to that system and you have to go do positive influence missions to keep yourself there, and eventually you can save yourself. If you don't do it in time, then your whole entire minor faction gets ejected out of a system. Boo hoo! So bad, too bad, so sad. Getting it back is not as easy as you would think. I thought it would be a lot easier than it is, but because then you have to basically expand back into that system, which may or may not be an option for you, depending on if you have another system nearby that you control and all these things. So it gets very
And this
confusing.
can all happen on accident. Everything we're discussing here
Yeah.
can literally happen on accident, and actually tends to happen more often than not on accident. There's like
Yeah.
not a concerted effort. It's just
Yeah. Nobody
your
cares about us. We're a little
your
tiny. Yeah.
no one's paying attention to minor factions. The
No.
minority of players in the BGS that are actively using the BGS in order to advance their own faction at any given
Yeah.
time. Whether that was in the intention of FDev with the system or not is who knows. But the real issue, as mentioned before, is really kind of the lack of safeguards and being able. Um, I can't, for example, say that all we can't change our system, even the origin systems. We cannot change to say we will not allow players from commanders from this faction to be able to
Yeah. You
dock at
can't
our
block people.
spaceports to
Yeah.
trade. There's no system in place, like a security safeguard, for example, where you can at least enable your if we had them, right? But
Yeah.
SpongeBob meme, if I had, oh, I'm sorry, Fairly Odd Parents meme, if I had it.
Yeah.
But we don't even have a system in place where we can take a our security system or security forces, if you had it with your various faction, you're with your various faction alignment for its government structure, and then say, okay, target this type of player faction, target this kind of NPC faction, check them at the gate, interdict them, ticket them, do not allow them to trade. Like it's illegal for them or illicit for them to trade in our system. You cannot
Yeah.
do that. There's no blockading. There's nothing like that that you can implement. Even at a player level, there's no systems that we can interact with that can enable that. And once again, you have a very Eve Online like system with the BGS, but we don't have the Eve Online like safeguards and player measures or even actions that we can use within the game itself to say, hey, I'm going to go to this menu, select this option. We're going to change the pattern of security guards. They're going to interdict. We're going to have them interdict like our player faction that's in control. We'll set the security settings so that they interdict any factions that we're deeming like hostile elements or
Yeah.
factions that we don't want trading, or we put a tariff on whatever goods they're bringing in. So if it's goods coming in from outside the system, a tariff is implemented on any like import control, right, and even export
Yeah.
control to maybe the systems that we don't want. These are things that we should theoretically have control over in the game, but we do not.
Mhm.
um, Once again, it's interesting to see such a in-depth meta or even pata system that exists within the framework of Elite Dangerous. Really, the game within the game, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, and it
we're
operates
missing
independently of everything else, so you don't have to worry about, you
exactly,
don't
yeah.
have to play power play if you don't want to. You don't have to, do whatever. But
But even if you don't play the BGS, you are participating in the BGS. You can
yeah, you
outright
are still
ignore
running
power
it.
play.
Yeah.
You can outright not participate with power play, but there is not a way that you cannot interact or have anything to do with BGS. And you might be the deep space explorer that comes out of hibernation once a year to play the game for 2 months, and then you eventually sell your data right back to
Yeah.
a non-carrier station. So you're going to like a given station, and you just sold 3 billion credits worth of Exo bio data. Congratulations, by the way, in surviving, reaching to sell that
Yeah.
much credits
That's
worth
like
of
the
Exo
one
bio
thing
data.
that's the one thing I'm
But
surprised
that's a
they
huge
haven't
boost.
fixed that so you don't lose that, because hell, you
That's
could
a
go
huge
get
boost to that
combat
faction.
bonds all day
Yeah,
and get killed and be fine, but you go get some damn exploration
slime off
data.
a rock. Yeah,
Yeah.
scrape some slime off a rock, man.
They
80
need a
million
digital way
credits.
to submit. They just need to submit that stuff immediately when you get it. I don't understand that whole wait till you turn it in 20 years later. No, just give them the money now. Yeah.
It is a little interesting how that works.
Yeah.
But for me, it's that alone has a huge impact on the minor faction in that system, on the minor faction on that
Yeah.
station when you
Well, yeah,
submit
because
that
it'll
data back.
boost it'll boost the primary faction way up too. Sometimes when those guys turn in all that data, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that we pay attention to this all the time now, especially when we're trying to push the influence in a direction or another, is we make sure that we only turn in stuff in our controlled systems, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or a lot of people don't think like that. They're just like, ah, let's just drop this, let's just get rid of this cartographic data, blah, 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 whatever. And we actually try to make sure that we drop it somewhere where it's going to have a better impact on us. So, anyway,
Or yeah, or you can build a system now with Trailblazers. You can say, I don't want my stations to have universal cartographic,
yeah, I have
centers,
one
and so
like that.
you
I have
can
a system like that.
and so you can build a system to just say, I don't want any UC, I don't want anyone selling exo bio data in this system to like negatively affect, potentially negatively affect my player faction score rep.
Yeah.
So it's and it's but here's once again kind of we're gonna go back to that point is that there are a lack of systems, like actual hard systems present within the game where I can just go to a menu. If I'm the controlling faction in the system, my player faction, my squadron faction is the controlling faction in the system. There's a lack of systems that state with regard, there are no systems for imports or import or export tariffs. There is no systems for taxation slash dues that you require from that system. There's no way to levy such things, even though there are mechanics in the game where that can be facilitated and just simply implemented in. There's no way to basically truly monetize your control of the system. and that goes for everything from import and export control to also dues, taxes, and even interdiction fees.
Yeah.
If you don't like a faction that's coming into your system, make life hell for them. Have your security system
Yeah.
target that faction, and maybe limit how many factions you could do this to, like only two or three or one. But they'll hyper focus on this single like faction, and they'll interdict them more, force fee payments, force fines, and it just makes it annoying to trade in the system. And that works against both the players and also the NPC element as well.
Well,
But there's
yeah.
nothing like that exists in this game, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I mean, so yeah, as far as like right now, one of the issues with Anarchy is like we don't get really a security force, right? So there's
Oh yeah,
no.
we haven't even touched
Yeah,
that.
we haven't even
Uh,
started crime and punishment yet, but crime and punishment's all broken anyway. But Anarchy needs, they don't need, police, but they need a gang, you know what I mean? Or the ATF in Anarchy version, because
well, absolutely be police. Like, the mob has its own enforcers,
well,
right?
that's what
Every
I'm saying. Yeah, you just wouldn't call them the police, but hey, whatever, I don't care what you call them the mafia. I don't care, but something,
hmm
we need to be able to have some sort of repercussions. I mean, I do like the whole anarchy thing and blah blah blah. That's all great when you're not the anarchy guys, okay? That they it
it's true.
it's
Do
totally
not
the
make it
whipping.
anarchy.
The anarchy is like the whipping boys, that we see the purple gang and we're like, let's go kill the purple gang,
Now, I
whatever.
actually want to. I'm glad we're talking about this issue now with anarchy, all the problems with anarchy, because this is a good segue into that topic now.
Yeah,
Because so now that we're taking a step back from like the economic aspect of what I feel like are a lack of control systems in the game. Now we're coming into the game, what, 12 years into this game.
yeah,
This game was a very different landscape 9 years ago. You
yeah,
had you had way less government, I guess, types that you
yeah.
could select,
Options, yeah,
and so people picked anarchy
yeah.
because they didn't want to be
They want to be
corpos. They
empire, or we didn't want. Yeah, we
didn't
didn't want
want
to
to
be
be,
federation. We just want to
an
be.
empire. They didn't want to be like federation. They didn't want to be these superpowers. They didn't want to have
Nobody
like
wants to be alliance. Come on.
they didn't want to be democracy. They didn't want to
Ugh,
be these
no. Ugh.
things. And so it's like, okay, can I just have like a syndicate, rule over my system? We're like a mafia, we're like a mob, we're a
Yeah.
clan,
I mean, the
you
rules
know.
should be different for us. What
No,
inspires influence than
all you
the
had
rules
was
like.
anarchy. I
Yeah.
don't think even independent was an option at the time either. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not
Well,
sure if it was.
independent is the superpower.
Yeah, so I think it might be the alliance, but you can never
Well, the
just call it the
alliance, yeah,
alliance.
they didn't really focus as much on independent at first. It was just the three, the Empire, Federation, and alliance. But then
Alliance, yeah,
later
those are the
on, the
superpowers.
independent became more of a thing, and that ended up becoming its own superpower, so to speak. Because
Yeah,
yeah,
just independently aligned major powers. Yeah,
we're just
and it
independent, dude. We don't care about you. You don't care about us. Whatever. Let's go.
but there were many options that just weren't available at the time. Like I believe
Yeah,
things like like a theological framework, like syndicate. It's like the other subtypes of governments that came later, and so
yeah.
you only had an option between anarchy or
Empire,
big corpo,
Federation. Yeah.
feudal
Feudal. Oh, I remember
democracy.
feudal. Yeah,
And
they had the big ones.
it was like, what is this? Like,
Yeah,
Warhammer
nobody wants.
Fantasy?
Yeah,
I
what is this? I don't even
I
know.
just want to have like my syndicate rule a system. Okay, why is there not like a crime syndicate or a syndicate option? So it was a very weird government structures that they had, and unfortunately, those government structures often led them towards the major power alignments too,
Yeah,
like
right.
feudal,
Yeah,
for example, and democracy. They would both lean in towards empire, or
yeah,
dictatorships kind of tend to lean one way or the other. So you couldn't just be anarchy. I think they eventually added things like communist and dictatorships later on,
yeah.
but
They had all
that
that.
wasn't present originally. That wasn't
Yeah,
present originally, and so a lot of people, a lot of player factions, a lot of squadrons, right? They picked anarchy because what else was there? And the problem with anarchy, and they don't really explain it to you at the time of when the system existed,
well, no,
was
they
that
didn't tell us anything. There's like, hey, you
you,
want to have a minor
you get
faction?
no security services, so you don't have cops. And you might think that's not an issue, but when your system becomes the prime candidate for
Yeah,
shenanigans because it's a for Hazreses, right? for no security sector.
Yeah, right.
Like it's a null sec in Eve.
I mean,
Like
it'd be great if it didn't kill our influence at the same time. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
it
that's the
makes it
problem. I think
possible.
influence needs to work differently for us because
Hmm.
we don't have any laws, so we can't be, they can't govern us by the same rules because we don't have the same rules as everybody else.
Yeah, depreciating the faction control in an
Yeah,
anarchy system should theoretically function differently from
yeah,
the other government subtypes, but it
right.
doesn't. It
No,
functions
it's just,
exactly the
yeah,
same.
it's the same, and it just kills us. We can't do anything about it.
It's open to all the same vulnerabilities. So even
Yeah.
if, like in the prior conversation I was having with, even if we had systems in place to like, focus security services in a way to provide an economic buttress for the system, you still wouldn't be able to do that with the current system that exists as it exists now because
Yeah.
anarchy is so utterly vulnerable to everything. I do believe anarchy systems, including pirate controlled anarchy systems, should have their own security forces. That doesn't make sense that you would have territory that you don't patrol.
Well,
Gangs,
when
of
you
course,
build a
patrol their own
system, if you
territory.
build security forces in it, they're already there.
Hmm.
They're just useless if you're an
They're
anarchy
useless.
system.
Yeah.
Just that's another thing. Like, certain
Yeah. Yeah.
starports, there's certain engineers and stuff won't work. Most engineers won't work in a anarchy system. So so even if you spend the money on, say, a dodec, you're an anarchy system, you still don't get to use
You
the
don't get to
little
use your tech
bonus.
broker. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't get to use the literal thing that you paid money
Yeah, the
for.
thing that you paid for, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just a lot of craziness, like, I don't think they really thought about anarchy deeply from the
By
player
the way,
side.
I have a system under the control of my player faction for my squadron, and
Yeah.
I have a dodec in that system that I bought, and I literally can't use the tech broker.
Yeah, I have one
So
I have 2.
yeah,
Yeah, I got them too.
I'm soon to have two dodecs as
Yeah,
primary
yeah.
starports, and one around a beautiful ringed Earth-like ammonia world, and unusable, unusable tech broker.
You're a flexer. So, that was
It
one
was
of
a
the
good
main
system. It
reasons.
was a good find. It was a good
Yeah, it was a
find.
good find. The main reason that people used it in the beginning was obviously prestige, right? So you got a system, you got to be in control of it. Eventually you start expanding and then you guys go to war with each other or whatever. And that was all well and good back in the day, but I don't think people use it for that anymore. I think it's mostly
Oh no.
just it's I think it's more leveraged towards the role playing side of things. And it's also because a lot of places that if you are the controlling faction in a system, say, and it's from a long time ago, you'll see there'll be like 7 or 8 factions in there or whatever it is, and then they all have a non-aggression pact with each other. They do that. There's a whole Discord for BGS where you can go in there and plead your case. If you want somebody to stop attacking you and all this stuff. There's a lot of politics that goes on outside of the game that we don't, know about, but that's what
Which,
happens nowadays.
to be fair, is encouraged. It's a part of the game, the
Yeah.
player-driven content of the game. To be fair, but once again, anarchy systems, the local security services, local security forces, they should be able to. You should be able to report crimes. You should be able to report issues within the system against the ruling faction. At
Yeah.
the very least,
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
very least, the primary
Well,
faction
it'd be like I'm the
should be
head
the
of the
one that
mob, and
get
then people
penalized.
are
Yeah,
coming in killing on my people, but I can't order them killed. You know what I
you
mean?
can't do anything in your own
You
backyard.
know,
Yeah, it's
that's okay,
crazy.
right? Yeah, we don't have any rules here. But if I was a real mafia boss, or and not that I know that much about mafia bosses, except what I've seen on TV. However, if I was a real mafia boss, and if I was, and saw that, I'd be like, I'd send my boys out and I'd say, go kill that dude. You know what I mean?
And
Let's
this
make sure he dies.
perfectly leads in, I think, to the next problem with anarchy systems, which is mission selection and mission types. Like
Oh, oh
I
yeah,
don't think
yeah,
anyone saw this coming who selected
yeah,
um like anarchy.
yeah,
Oh, did you want missions to increase your player faction? I
yeah,
let me know if this sounds familiar to any listeners or to you, Fearion. But you're sitting there, you fly, you dock at your station, in your origin system or your trailblazer system with your faction that's ruling as the ruling body president. You're like, okay,
yeah,
I want to expand into another system. I want to put us in an expansion boom state. Let me do some missions for my faction. What are some of the higher influence ones right now to keep raising it, to keep boosting us? Smuggling. Okay, that's good.
That's a
Oh,
good one. Yeah.
this one here seems to be really high for some reason. It involves ship combat. Okay, let me go check this one out. How are you doing, NPC? Hey, how's it going, Commander Fearion? Hey, long time no see. Yeah, Hey, you looking for missions? Yeah, I'm looking for missions. Oh, well, come on down. I got some ship combat here. I know you're really big into like dogfighting these days. You like that? Yeah. So
Yeah.
they might not shoot back because they're this an unarmed passenger liner
Yeah.
full of children. Now I don't know what your moral scruples, quote unquote, are about blowing up a passenger liner full of children.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it makes you feel any better, they're blind and deaf. Ain't no one gonna miss these kids. They're all orphans.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be the max rep, though. That's the highest rep gain mission for this faction in the system. And
Yeah.
if you want to push us into the state, it's either lame hauling or blowing up a bus full of kids.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Yeah. What do you want to do? Yeah.
So that's the reality of anarchy.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
it's a
some
little bit
people
too
like that.
much. Yeah, it's a little bit too much in some cases. Yeah, Anarchy, at least our group, gets really crap missions anyway. You know what I mean? We don't get any. I mean, sometimes we get okay missions, but I mean, any other group, they usually get really nice missions. You can haul stuff, you can do all that stuff. Yeah, our missions are always like go execute somebody, go kill this politician,
Mhm.
this stuff. It's like, okay, all right.
I don't even know how there's politicians in these systems any longer.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Every single like main, and these are all like the highest influence player faction missions you can do for Anarchy, for your
Yeah.
Anarchy player faction in a system. By the way, they're always uh, gun down a politician and their family, blow up a bus full of kids, or or sell drugs at this location, or steal this from a surface planetary port. And you're kind of just looking at this going, wow, this is like the most psychotic thing ever. And it's really weird when you're trying to, like, especially for the RP guys out there who are
Yeah.
listening. How many of you created a Anarchy Explorer guild back in the beginning of the game? I know my guild did.
Yeah.
And you're sitting here going, wow, I got a terror taxi. I gotta like blow up a bus full of like people. Like I gotta steal shit. Like I mean, I just wanted. We're just an explorer guild, man. Like I just want to do normal things to expand my
Yeah.
expansion. Everyone else gets to do normal things. But Anarchy uniquely is psychotic. You'd figure that would just be a pirate or terrorist,
Yeah.
subtype if that was like a government structure or something. But no, it's just a pure amorality and pure immorality, even with all the mission
Yeah.
subtypes. And I'm sorry, for like the RP groups out there, they maybe don't want to engage in grand larceny or
True. True. Yeah.
arson.
Well, and all the other groups in your system, you know what their missions get to be? It's like go kill all the Anarchy guys, in your group. And
Yes, go
yeah,
bully Anarchy.
yeah,
Yeah, go bully
go
Anarchy.
bully Fearion. He doesn't mind. He's cool with that, because he's a mob boss that, can't control the mob, So all right, whatever. But it's like something we've been living with for a long time, and they never addressed it. So
It's so bad we all have to like build specific ships just to like do very specific Anarchy
yeah,
missions,
that's
like
what I do. I do the
raiding.
same thing. Yeah. Yeah, I have very
Everybody
specific
has to
ships
do
to
it.
do the one thing that I needed to do, you
Time to
know.
go blow up the 20th generator
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
That's
yeah. We gotta
Garrett's
go
like,
kill
hey,
some
get
more
outside.
generators, which actually is fun, but it gets boring.
It is fun.
It is fun.
But
It
yeah,
is fun to run down there and shoot a thing and then fly out of there real fast. That's fun. But listen. So let's just recap because we're getting close to the end of our time. So let's just recap. So what the Anarchy, or what the minor faction system was originally for, I believe, was mostly prestige, where you could set up your own government, where you could, it was kind of a more localized thing. That sound right to you? It was prestige, though. Really, if you got
yeah,
your
it was
name in the
far more
game,
localized. Yeah.
yeah. So, and that was one of the few ways back then where you could get your name in the game. There's lots of ways to get your name in the game now, but you know what I mean. So that was the main reason. Have our own government, be able to control what's going on. I like some of the newer, stuff, but the number of systems that you can end up getting into is unmanageable. It's Anara can't even keep up with it all because you literally Anara
Yeah.
only knows what people are reporting. So we could literally be in more systems than we think we are. Because if whoever, when we expanded somewhere, which we don't even participate in, it just expands by itself and all this stuff, unless somebody goes there and hits the scanner and sends that into Anara or ED, whatever those other ones are, Anara doesn't even know. And God forbid if you go into expansion. Oh my God. Nara has a complete conniption when that happens because all the systems are reporting in expansion, and unless you go there and clear all that out of all those systems, it's just going to keep saying that they all report that we're in expansion forever and ever and ever. So anyway, there's some issues, but what we'd like to see is more control brought back to it, and re-implement the system back into the game. Let us create new factions. Let us have better. We got better choices of governments and all that. All that stuff's all fine. I mean, maybe it doesn't have to work on this stupid tick, so we have to wait 24 hours to find out if what we did yesterday actually did anything. Stuff
The
like
tick so
that.
much doesn't even like necessarily bother me. I know it bothers a lot of people. I know a lot of people listening to
Well,
this will literally
yeah,
hate
no, I mean,
losing
I
tick
deal
and
with
daily
it,
tick.
right? I
Yeah.
deal with it, but I don't like it. I'd prefer it work more like power play, where
Yeah.
power play, right
I can
away.
see that. Yeah, I can see that. You want to see immediate results, but even then,
Well,
I
even if
really
it's an
think
hour or two, I wouldn't mind. But you know what I mean. Well, the thing is
yeah.
too is the tick is inconsistent per system, right? So the tick could
Oh
be
yeah, it is. Yeah, you're
5 o'clock in
You're right.
one and 10 o'clock in another and 3 o'clock in the morning. You can't never, you know what I mean. You never know. Where are we at in the cycle? Unless you're focusing on one system at a time, you don't have any clue what's going on or how often or whatever. So I don't know. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we
No,
wrap this up?
I think we covered a lot of the points you kind of wanted to talk about, and I know this is going to kind of get a lot. This was going to get more off kilter because this is, the first time we're kind of all finding our footing here with this podcast. Um, but
Yeah.
the big thing for me is the lack of, well, one, anarchy needs to be able to have a functional security state. Like all anarchy factions should be
Yeah,
able to
we
have
should have security of some kind. Yes.
like, and two, everyone should be able to direct the security. If you are the controlling faction of that system, you should have more control over what happens in that system than we currently do. You should be able to levy tariffs,
Yeah.
dues, fines. You should be able to
Now you're
direct the
going you're
security
going way
forces to
outside the
some degree.
box, man.
Apparently, I am.
Yeah.
Apparently,
You're
Metal
good.
Gear Solid 5 can
Yeah.
do it, but
Yeah.
this game
Hey,
can't.
you know what? Well, I'll tell you one thing you could give us before we wrap is you remember we were talking about we would like expansion to let us pick a direction or pick the system we want to, like if you get in a war
Yes,
with somebody and you get thrown out of the system,
which can happen very easily now.
getting back into it's a real problem. So because it's random, the expansion is random to where you got to go. So could literally take you years to get back into a system, especially with the rule set that they have implemented now and the number of systems that we're in. It's impossible to control whether or not we go to war or whether we do this or whether we do. Yeah, it's just a lot of confusion. So
Yeah, it's random very quickly. It's random in the sense that it will expand in the nearest star. I think it's like within like a 14 or 13 light year radius. But if there's no available star with room for your faction to move into, then it will expand it to it was like 26, 28 light years. And then if there's no room there, it will look at 50. And if there's nothing at 50, then it's just okay. Well, I'm done. Your expansion boom state has failed. There's
yeah,
nothing available
I mean,
in
yeah,
the
there could
surrounding
still be a
area.
limit, but we'd like to be able to choose where it goes. And if they do connect it to a squadron, then
Well,
they
that is
can
the
do
limit.
that. Yeah.
That's the problem that currently exists, is that there is that kind of a limit, and it really
Well,
when
unless you
and when
colonize a
you're
new system, then there's no
yes,
limit.
and when you're on a very limited government type structure. So if you're like an anarchy system, once again, anarchy really just is the whipping dog of the game. It really is.
Yeah.
But when you're on that anarchy type, it further that's like a further that's a further nail in your side that you have to deal with, and when you're trying to force your player faction expansion, and it's just a lot easier for any other government type, any other economic type.
Yeah.
There needs to be some kind of benefit. Is I think the kind of the
Yeah.
point of the stream.
Well, I'm hoping that this is even
Any
the
kind of
thing that
BGS
they're going to
framework.
work on. I'm pretty sure it is, because there is no other core system that works like that.
Yes,
And it's the
that's the
only piece
reason.
they really haven't worked on yet. So
Yep.
we've been patiently waiting, and we're hoping.
And that is the reason for the topic of this episode, in case it wasn't obvious, was the
Yeah.
discussion of a core system rework, rebuild, version 2. Well, it can't be power play because we already had that.
Yep. And it
And
can't be
that
colonization. We already had that.
can't be colonization. We already had that. So what is the only system that is truly a core system? It
That
forms the
touches
framework,
every other system in the
bedrock.
game. That's background simulator.
That's the BGS, yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, if you have any comments, and leave them below, let us know what you think about the BGS. I know it's kind of a topic that gets a little bit of pushback, because some people don't like it at all because they want everything static, or they want other things going on, or they don't even like anarchy, whoever it is. But listen, if you got some comments, I read all the comments. I'll give you a love if you do. And thanks to Kai for coming out tonight. And if you guys want us to talk about this some more and just really confuse the hell out of you, let us know, because we like to do that. This is one topic I can actually kind of sort of keep up with Kai on. So he's a young buck, so he gets me confused sometimes. I'm like, what? What? No,
this is the topic I'm least. I will say I'm like almost least knowledgeable.
Yeah, but you're doing good. You did good.
It's almost esoteric.
I couldn't even call BS on anything you said tonight. So except when you went over the edge there a little bit, but
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we need to be able to do things.
I know. I get it, man.
Do things. I mean,
get
how
it,
cool
man.
would it be to levy tools at the very least on or export controls or import controls?
It'd be great if I could. That's
such an Eve thing.
If I could just wake up and not be at 1% in every damn system, I'd be fine too. But hey, whatever.
That's such an Eve thing for me to say. How cool would it be to levy import?
We're not gonna make it spreadsheet simulator like Eve. I was watching that today, and there was some stuff I was like, oh my god, that game is too much.
This game is already a spreadsheet simulator.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not Eve Online simulator though. Eve Online's way more detailed.
I guess it is worse. Yeah, you're correct. It is worse.
All right, guys, we're gonna cut out of here. Again, thanks for coming out, Kai, and we will catch up with you guys very, very soon. Bye, everybody.
07.